Hello and welcome to our Retire Early lifestyle. What we're about to share with you today, you've never heard it put into a perspective that you could relate to, but it should be put into proper perspective for better understanding. So here goes. What we're sharing with you today is like a loose hanging thread on the seam of your pants that is getting ready to unravel. But why is it getting ready to unravel? Well, it's because there's a loose thread, and once a thread becomes loose, all the threads unravel and the whole seam falls apart. A person moving to a foreign country is like putting a polar bear in the desert or a crocodile in the Arctic. Will they adapt to that foreign environment? Absolutely not. And people are no different when taken from their familiar surroundings and thrown into a foreign country. Why would we choose to move to Italy or Spain over France or Portugal? It is not because we think Italy or Spain is better or is more interesting country. It's not because we think the people are nicer or the food is better. France and Portugal may be wonderful countries to go vacation and stay for a week or two or three. But for full-time living, we would rather choose a country where we could understand the people and speak with them. And of course, this would be assuming we lived in a normal world, which we explained in a previous video, that just to say, this is a what if we move to Europe scenario, because we would not consider moving to any EU country in Europe at the moment. But anyway, that's beside the point of this video, so we're not veering off to go there right now. That's for a different video, maybe. So again, if we move to Europe, why would we choose Italy or Spain over Portugal or France? Are you ready? Because we speak the language. Frank, what is the smartest thing we did when we moved abroad?
The first thing that we did before we even landed abroad was we made a decision I was going to learn Spanish.
Folks, this is a very big detail that most people overlook when they go abroad. We don't think about the consequences of not knowing the language, but after you've been living abroad for 13 years and traveled to various countries where they only speak Russian, Polish, Bulgarian, and Georgian, you realize how much of a need it is for your own well-being to understand the language of the country you live in on a permanent basis.
So I set it in my mind that no matter how difficult it is, I will persevere and try to learn the language. So that, I think that gave us a good firm foothold. For example, when you watch other bloggers that are in these areas that you don't really realize they're really shills for the Rams, you realize that they're doing things like hiring locals to go shopping for them at the mercados. They're not really doing the shopping, but they don't tell you that in their videos. And that's fine, you know, if you want to go abroad and hire people to do everything for you, you can always do that. But that isn't why we went abroad. We didn't go abroad to hire people to do things for us. We wanted the experience. We wanted it to be an authentic experience. We've talked about that in other videos. To me, it's not an authentic experience if I have to hire somebody to do everything for me.
We know what it's like when you first move to a new country. It is so neat and exciting. Most Americans can't wait to settle in and start enjoying the cuisine and people and attractions, scenery, and nature. But do we really settle in? Well, that depends on what your definition of settling in means. But for us, settling in does not mean not knowing the language, and is why we learned it as quick as possible. Fortunately, Spanish is one of the easiest languages to learn, and especially if you already know Italian, which Frank did. So for us, settling in means the ability to adjust to a new environment and feeling comfortable living in that new environment. Your environment includes the people. In fact, the local people are a big part of your new environment because at some point in your day or week, you will have to interact with the people.
You know, talking about all the issues that are romanticized, and you've got all these starry-eyed people, and we want to encourage you to do something that you really want to do, which is to go abroad. But we also want you to know everything there is to know, because you see people making videos that are doing things based on what they see on YouTube, and then later you see them totally changing their life. And one of the complaints they have is, well, the things they don't tell you, you know. Like I just went to the printer, and we've been back and forth to the printer here in Warsaw, Poland, and I was going to print some stuff off the internet, off my email, some documents, and I got in there. Yes, she speaks English. She does speak English, but I went in there, as I always do, and do things, you know, take charge kind of person. You just go in there, you flip it open, the computer, and bada bing, bada boom, it's in Polish. I can't do a darn thing, not a darn thing, and you just feel helpless, you know, and it's like, okay, excuse me, I just need some help printing out a couple of PDFs from my email, and that was last week. So we went back this morning, and it's just habitual. I want to sit down and just print stuff out, and oh, hello, sorry, you have to babysit the foreigners, you know, you got to sit here and come over here and print out my 3 PDFs out of my email, you know. So
And what if they don't speak English? What are you gonna do? When we moved to Italy, for instance, we understood the Italians when they talked to us. We were interacting with the people on a more personal and satisfying basis. Few Italians speak English, by the way. We don't expect them to speak our language. We are in their country after all. After having been to many countries where we don't speak the language, we have found it more frustrating and less satisfying. We decided early on we would not move to any country where we could not speak the language, and there are many reasons for that. We loved Poland, and the one thing that stopped us from moving there was the language barrier. Few Polish folks speak English once you get outside of the big city of Warsaw.
So I was talking to a friend, and I'm going, you know, we're talking about, oh, you know, it's really polarized here in the US right now. You should stay in Poland. And I'm going, yeah, I don't speak Polish. And he's like, well, I didn't speak any Spanish, and I spent so many years in blah blah South America. And I'm thinking to myself, I really appreciate the encouragement, right, from my friends. But remember, we don't do things the standard newbie gringo way. We kind of branch away from our goal is to be in a local neighborhood. And I've said in other videos, if you're uncomfortable doing that, you might be in the wrong country. You know, you really need to give that some thought, because it's super important. If you absolutely feel like you must, and this is, you know, people say how many millions of Americans are in Mexico, but what's the point if they're all in their little gated spotlight, you know, right there, and they're paying US prices for rent because of that? Because remember, you're competing with the big city folks, and you know, from America, because to them it's always still cheap. And then the regular other place, people, Americans from, you know, lower cost of living areas, they get priced out. It's that's always the game, and you know, in these cities. So anyway, yeah, we wouldn't be in a gringo settlement and here in Poland, so we would be in a Polish neighborhood with Polish neighbors. And to not have any language, that's, I mean, that's a bigger challenge than the way that it's looked at.
Many people simply don't realize the consequences of not knowing the language of the country they move to. It's actually the root cause of why expats return home. One example, imagine you're out in the country of Bulgaria trying to figure out the bus system, and all the signs are just gobbledygook to you.
So we're trying to make heads or tails here. I guess we're just gonna have to wing it like a baby again. They got 4 different buses that come here. So I think we should just go 2 stops and then jump off. We're trying to go to the botanical gardens here. It's on the map, but the map so far, the Google Maps is
the name Botanical Garden.
The Google Maps has been wrong about 40% of the time.
It can actually be really frustrating. Usually out in the country, less people speak English, and you just feel helpless. Have you ever thought of all the reasons why an expat would even return home after they uprooted their whole lives and moved to a foreign country? Almost all of the emotional and personal reasons a person would leave a foreign country and go back home for goes directly back to not knowing the language, and I'm going to show you that in just a moment. In this case, the country remains foreign to them because they feel like a polar bear in the Mojave Desert because of the frustrations of not knowing the language, the inability to make friends. Why? Because we can't speak the language. The inability to get bargains for rent and unable to negotiate at mercados. Why? Because we can't speak the language. Unable to integrate within the culture and community. Why? Because we can't speak the language. Feeling of isolation in the community. Why? Because we can't speak the language. Homesick for familiar territory back home. Why? Because we can't speak the language. Got taken advantage of on rental contracts. Why? Because we can't speak the language. Got scammed somehow. Why? Because we can't speak the language. Unable to read signs on buildings and road signs. You're like a baby. Only staying in the expat neighborhoods makes your life insulated, expensive, and perhaps more boring. It also potentially sets you up for the criminal expat scammer and a target of local criminals too.
When we first went to Cuenca, Ecuador, that's the two foundational things, the language and the local authentic living experience did to us is it put us in a place where we didn't have to be right smack dab in the middle of the location-wise what was considered to be the gringo alley at the time, which we did not coin, the locals did. So that what I'm saying is even though we were in Cuenca, Ecuador, we weren't right there with the gringos in that area that they liked at the time. That right there set the stage for putting us apart and being able to overcome, more importantly, the issues related to living in a RAM bubble, which we didn't see the RAM bubble coming at first. We didn't know. We were just like everybody else. We were oblivious to it. Nowadays, you guys have bloggers like us that talk about these kinds of things, and maybe a few others. But again, most of them don't do that. Most of them give you all the postcard and the rosy picture. Because of those two things, we were able to set ourselves aside, and therefore, that is the whole reason why we were able to weather the storm of the RAM bubble. You see, we were able, because we were able to tie down a house at $250 a month for 5 years. Incidentally, we had a gringo friend ask us, because he was wondering why we talked so much about rents going up, doubling and tripling. The RAM pumpers will tell you there's no inflation here. You know, if you believe that kind of gobbledygook, then you're just part of the problem of the bubble. You're just in the middle of that, so, and you don't see it. The thing is that the local pricing that we experienced and the local experiences that we experienced being on a local level and paying $250 in rent is a total different experience. So I'm not trying to say that we're better. You know, I don't want to sound like that.
But we are trying to say it's an authentic experience.
Authentic experience, and it is a different experience, and that's why part of why we went abroad was to have a local authentic experience, and anything else just wouldn't have been that.
Number 10, the inability to adapt. Why? Because we cannot speak the language. So this is just something to think about before you uproot your familiar life for a foreign country. And we're not saying you have to know the language, but it sure does make your life abroad more satisfying.
I'm all for learning the local language too, so it's not a complaint. I'm just saying, look, these are the challenges that you have to give some serious thought to and decide, how serious you really are about doing things like that. So
we hope you enjoyed the information. Thanks for watching. Take care and bye-bye.